Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gloria Vanderham. I lead a company called Highwire Health. We are a new division of Highwire that helps clients reshape how they're creating change in the healthcare system and also navigating through all of the challenges that many of us have every day. I've also had the opportunity to work with a few of you in the room, actually, incredible leaders who want to disrupt the healthcare system. And we work with companies from biotechs all the way through to healthcare, digital, and everything in between. But the one piece that we're seeing that's actually quite exciting is there's a lot of interest when it comes to individual care and looking at the patient experience, the patient access in a new and different way. And so, we can all agree that the healthcare system is built for the masses. And when we think about one person's experience, it's never the same as someone else's. And so the good news is there is increased innovation when it comes to looking at treatment for one versus treatment for everyone. Today we're going to talk about what is compounding, how compounding actually affected personally and professionally our speaker, and really look at what the hope and future could be when we think about pharmacy and healthcare and helping when it comes to access across the board. So with that, through Haley's words, this is Haley Cavallo, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Southend Pharmacy. Southend Pharmacy is based in Houston. They are a leading compounding pharmacy that services more than 3,000 clinicians and providers. And we are going to talk today and just have a good conversation about customized medicine and all the things. So I'll bring up my questions now. Thank you so much for being here, Haley.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and Humble Ventures for having me today. Excited to share from my innovation and also Advocacy.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started. So talk to us about compounding. What is your connection? Where did you grow up? Tell us all about you, all the secrets.
Yeah, so a little bit of background on me. So I actually grew up in Houston, Texas, and was a byproduct of an energy corridor family there. Is what brought our family there. I went to high school in the area and then landed at Texas A&M University. My goal in getting to Texas A&M was to kind of study. I knew I wanted to be in pharma, but what that looked like, I wasn't really sure. But in parallel, I also started at a young adolescent on my own journey to find my healing and health struggles, and just over and over being met by medications that were just the standard therapy and didn't get me to where I needed. And so what that looked like at an age of 19 was I'd actually had 9 women's health providers who couldn't give me answers, and just feeling like I'd been met with a system that couldn't address what I needed, and just feeling like it was falling short. So from there, ironically, I'm getting ready to graduate from Texas A&M, and I had this senior sales professor who had deep pharma roots, which was really cool, and kind of got to see my career actually through him, but also at the same time was encountering these health struggles, right? So through that work, I actually was 3 weeks from graduation, got offered a job at a 503A independent pharmacy. Ironically, I Googled what compounding was the night before, because everybody knows what pharma is, standardization, and being able to get access to those medications, but really wanted to understand what independent pharmacy was going to offer me. And so throughout that, I found many impasses in my own health, different areas of treatment, whether it be autoimmune conditions I was diagnosed with, inflammatory pain management, different areas of women's health as well, where I was met with a compounded treatment. And so not just only did I have this personal connection with compounding, it did not just start with my job, they almost worked within parallel with each other. And so for those who don't understand or aren't as deeply familiar as I was when I first started, compounding actually bridges that gap. It comes in when there are drug shortages, or maybe a treatment option or a protocol doesn't address what the patient is actually going through, and that can look like a dosage, a delivery form, a different strain. And so through my personal experiences, it's also, really impacted the way I see my work at Southend every day.
9 healthcare professionals seems shocking, but yet it's so real for many.
Yes, and it's not uncommon too, is what I'm finding. Just as I've, had these personal interactions with patients over the years in independent pharmacy, they'll come to you with XYZ concern, and I'm realizing, little by little as I open up, not only to articulate the outcome of what compounding can provide, but also at the same time created that awareness for patients of how it can impact them personally as well.
And when you were navigating your own healthcare challenges, I mean, I'm so grateful that you had the opportunity to find compounding that helped you live a better life. But my question would be, when you were navigating these challenges, what did you wish that you had known? And, how does that inform the way that you're advocating for women and for patients as a whole regarding their healthcare options?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I just wish I'd known that compounding could bridge that gap. And while there are standard medications and commercial products, I would say that, not taking those as a first line therapy and a final option to kind of speak up, to advocate for yourself, to be informed, and to ask your provider, is there an area where a compounded treatment could help me?
And it's definitely a part of the healthcare continuum, right? It's not the replacement, but we definitely see there being an opportunity for it to be a part of, especially when we think about treatments that can't be created unless they're compounded.
Right, and so there's just a need for that not one size fits all approach.
And, I think there's many people that live with a lot of different diseases and illnesses and don't even know what it is for a very, very long time. And, there's a moment that many patients tell us and that we've talked about many times where, they finally felt heard.
Yes.
Like, thank you for listening, right? So when did you have that moment? What did that feel like?
Yeah, and so for me, what that looked like was, a provider who finally saw me for a whole patient, what that individual root cause approach was, and a provider who got me to that place where I felt healthy and balanced again. So not just, what was available, but also bridging the gap with a compound, finding out that, I could have the best outcome possible.
And when, you've mentioned to me in the past, this is one of the first times she's sharing her story publicly. You kept it private for a very long time. Why was that?
I just feel like a lot of patients go through this journey and they think what they're going through is so singular and isolating a lot that it's maybe something that should stay within their care team, their provider, their pharmacist, and as a patient. But just over the years of work that I've done here in compounding, I've come to the realization that there's millions and millions of patients who this affects and are struggling with this every day. Whether it's been a multitude of the 15 years of history that I've had with my experience with compounding, or whether it's just they're new to it. There is a place and there is a need. And so without these conversations of awareness where it can bridge that gap, it became very clear to me that there was a need to have these conversations around the industry, around the impact, and around the application so people could see it in their own lives and then within their own family members, just being, falling victim to a system of standardization, maybe based on, insurance reimbursements or what is, being offered to them.
How many people in the room are familiar with compounding? How many people take a compounded drug?
Wow.
Excellent. Okay, great. So let's talk about the industry for a minute. So tell me about, historically, for those that don't know, what compounding is, and where do you see the evolution of compounding pharmacies in today's healthcare system?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gloria. So I would say from the inception of time and pharmacy and humanity, medications were actually individualized. And there was a lot of evidence of medications being made even in very, very primitive times with the ideation of customization. But what came to a sense was, a need for standardization, access, and life-saving treatments at scale. So essentially, over time, those are really profound needed Western therapies that need an application and have a place. However, there will always be that need for customization within a patient. And so that's kind of, I think where compounding comes in that place.
And it's also, as you mentioned, for drug shortages and when we can't get our medicines, compounding can be done.
Yes. Delivery forms, different use cases.
Allergies to medicines, all the things.
Yes.
Absolutely. And where do you see in your experience that there's an opportunity to educate providers on compounding and the role in treating certain health conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just over my years of experience in work, I think there was initially, and I tell my CEO all the time, he's like, okay, so talk to me, what's your next webinar idea? What are we doing here? And I'm like, look, historically, like providers are have creatures of habit. They want to know what use cases, where they can use and something. Essentially, I would say that, when we're educating them, I think just empowering them with the use cases and best decision-making skills on where, when, and how it can apply is just typically where I lean into. And that's really what we've built here at Southend Pharmacy. Like Gloria mentioned, we have over 3,000 clinics we've served to date, and we're licensed in over 30 states. So essentially, we have just, really built something intentionally that leans into what the provider needs, educating them and communicating with them.
And I think too, physicians really do want help and help you get there. I mean, curious with those, when you went to your first 9, they obviously wanted to partner with you in their care, right? They're here to heal, right?
Yes.
And to help. But do you think that there's a lot of education prior to going out into the world when they're in school and otherwise on compounding, or do you find that it's something that is becoming more popular?
Yes, and so we are seeing this trend of like there's no one size fits all, and more advocacy voices such as mine or other patients who just aren't accepting the status quo. But I think a lot of the challenges that exist in today's market are in support of, standardization and also access to medications. And so when you have that, there's a real need for someone to speak up and have these industry-wide conversations.
And it's so important too, you know where your medicines are coming from.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we've talked about before when it comes to compounding, but ensuring you've got the quality. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and so essentially what that quality process looks like. So it's much more, regulated on different levels depending on our licensures, but we're, we have a pretty robust QA/QC team. They have a whole dedicated space just to ensuring that, patients get their medications and they are what they say they are. For those who aren't familiar, more almost kind of like a high quality standardization in comparison to like the process of baking, starting with that FDA registered pharmaceutical and moving through that process and testing to ensure patients get what they deserve.
Great, thank you. And so let's talk about the future, what we hope, our hopes and dreams. Where do you see the compounding space evolving in the next 5 years? And what does the ideal future look like for patients, providers, and for pharmacies?
Yeah, so my hope for the future would be that, these conversations for patients, they start with the provider. They're looking at their biology, their unique profiles, kind of like, we discussed earlier this morning, and how compounding fits into that. Whether that is a standardized medication, I think the challenge is currently is it seems as if it takes years and decades. And so for providers, educating them so they know that place at the early onset to identify when that therapy is necessary. For pharmacies, it's, I think, deeper connections and access through digital platforms and allowing for more innovation and deeper provider networks.
And when we think about those care deserts, right, we have to have the ability to sort of have many hands make like work, right? So if you have everybody working together within that sort of patient, physician, and pharmacy
relationship, it really helps the broader audiences, but yet get that more specialized treatment.
Yes.
And what would you say to someone in the audience who feels like they haven't found the right solution yet, or doesn't know that compounding may be an option for them in their journey? And what questions do you expect them to ask? That's a lot in one, but what questions do you want? How do you prepare them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say starting with, you know, each of us are unique and we should be treated as such. So when we're talking to our provider, you know, I think it's easy to feel like what they've offered to us up until this point, maybe you're a failure, your body's not made for this system. So having those conversations of, you know, asking the provider, you know, is this the right place? Or being your own advocate in your own voice, and just where compounding can meet that need.
You know, it's interesting. Ritesh and I were talking earlier about, you know, the fact that if clinical trials were inclusive, right, then you would actually know how medicines treat individuals.
Yes.
And I won't go there too much, but
Yes.
I think it's quite, you know, fascinating now that we're able to test and see what's going on and then be able to work with your providers to think about what are the options that can actually help us and help find answers in the future.
I agree.
And do you have a perspective, and now this is a tough one, on policy changes? So when you think about, you know, how we really, you know, can help patients be impactful, have support there, and really make sure that, you know, as we're looking at the healthcare system changing and as we're looking at longevity and wellness, you know, where is the opportunity when it comes to that change?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a conversation that's trending in the longevity market, and that, you know, accepting a healthcare system where a one size fits all is not of the thinking today. But what I would like to see in policy, more supportive direct care and cash pay models, which supports compounding access. I think a lot of it can be inhibited through other models, and just seeing more of that to ensure patients get the access they deserve.
And if you could wave your magic wand and fix one thing, what would it be?
I think just compounding not being your fourth or fifth line therapy or 10 years of searching for answers. I think, you know, coming into a provider's office and anticipating that the conversation of, you know, you're a unique individual and should be treated as such should be a baseline and not, you know, an afterthought.
I like that very much. And I think, you know, if I could wave my wand, I think it would be very similar. It's holistic care, right? And being for someone to look and see all of the tests that are being done, but also know all of the options that they can have to treat them.
Yeah, and just, you know, kind of demanding that out of healthcare and a system that can provide that. You know, I'm also a mother, I have children and other generations growing up underneath me, and to be seen as that whole person.
So, okay, last question. Okay. So you've built your career at the intersection of healthcare marketing and personal advocacy. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What is the mission that makes it all worth it for you?
Yeah, I think it's just this turning point where we can remove barriers, right? So every provider we educate, every patient who has a better outcome, it all kind of calculates into this greater picture of innovation for me, for the patient, and then also bridging that gap. And that's truly what pharmacy innovation means to me.
I love this. And better access, better outcomes, less searching, more surviving, all the things.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Haley, thank you so much for sharing your story with everyone, for talking with us about compounding and really looking at, you know, treatment for one
Yes.
and treatment for everyone. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Lori.